Okay, yeah, my name is Philippe Devoir. Nice to meet you.
Martin Martineau, ancien analyste à la Société québécoise de l'infrastructure.
Véronique Paris, Vice President Supply Chain at Danone.
This is Ladon Devan, Vice President Human Resources at Danone.
Should we introduce ourselves as well with background or just? No? Okay, perfect. Dear judges, ladies and gentlemen, I think I speak on behalf of the entire team here when I say this. Now, thank you for joining us on this glorious morning. It's quite early, and we had to get up at 2 a.m., but somehow we still found that amazing eagerness to get out of bed this morning. Why? Because we knew we were going to look at an amazing business today, and we're going to create an amazing opportunity and solution for you. However, when we walked through those doors, we didn't just walk in here with a passion. We walked in here with the most incredible passion I've ever felt in my life, and I'm speaking on behalf of Tyson Rigg and Emily Fournier as well. My name is Roma Stepanchenko, and today we don't just bring you a solution. We don't just bring you an amazing solution. We bring you the best ageless solution for your enterprise to ensure that Danone remains a leader in the industry and remains a prosperous enterprise for years to come. Sans autre parole, je vais passer la parole à ma collègue Emily Fournier qui va vous montrer notre ordre du jour.
Donc, merci Romain. Donc, tout d'abord, je vais vous parler de l'agenda pour aujourd'hui. Donc, je vais vous parler tout d'abord avec la situation actuelle, un bref aperçu. Par la suite, des deux options qu'on a considérées dans la situation. Ensuite, je vais faire une brève analyse qualitative. Et ensuite, les collègues vont enchaîner avec une analyse quantitative et nos recommandations suite à la solution. Donc, tout d'abord, la situation actuelle de Danone. Donc, présentement, vous avez 4 segments bien établis dans plusieurs pays. En effet, vous êtes dans 130 marchés. Votre part de marché pour les pays en émergence sont de 53%, ce qui est quand même très élevé. Et vous êtes déjà établi en Afrique. Donc, les deux options aujourd'hui qui s'offrent à vous sont soit l'option A, une construction d'une usine au Kenya pour pratiquer vos activités dans ce pays, ou bien aller avec l'option B pour expandre vos activités au Kenya, mais aller s'approvisionner dans un autre pays, dans une usine déjà établie. Donc, tout d'abord, je vais faire une brève analyse des deux options, mais avant, j'aimerais ça qu'on considère une question d'éthique. En effet, je sais que vous avez déjà analysé les pour et les contre d'aller s'établir au Kenya. Mais j'aimerais ça vous rappeler quelques points importants qui pourraient avoir un impact sur votre décision et sur l'implantation de vos projets futurs. Donc, tout d'abord, au Kenya, c'est sûr qu'il y a un risque de corruption. En effet, le pays a une réputation justement d'avoir un peu de corruption. Aussi, il faut s'assurer de la fraîcheur des aliments, puisque soit dans une situation ou une autre, les aliments devront respecter une certaine norme, une certaine législation établie au Kenya. Aussi, il y a la situation actuelle du pays qui peut être aussi très instable. Donc, elle peut changer d'un jour à l'autre, puisque c'est un pays en émergence, contrairement à un pays vraiment plus développé. Et l'importance du gouvernement en place dans ce pays. Donc, on ne sait pas vraiment, puisqu'on vient d'émerger, qu'on veut émerger au Kenya, on ne sait pas c'est quoi l'importance que le gouvernement veut accorder au sein des entreprises qui s'établissent dans ce pays. Donc maintenant, je vais faire une analyse qualitative des deux options. Donc tout d'abord, l'option A. Je vais commencer avec les forces. Donc vous pouvez voir sur les PowerPoint, le pouvoir de négociation pour les matières premières est meilleur avec l'option A. En effet, puisque l'usine va être construite dans le pays où on va pratiquer au Kenya, on peut communiquer plus facilement avec les fournisseurs. Aussi, les frais de douane sont moindres puisqu'on est déjà établi dans le pays. Et il y a aussi les coûts de transport qui sont aussi moindres, comme j'ai mentionné, puisqu'on est dans le pays. Les faiblesses maintenant, c'est les coûts industriels. Parce qu'en effet, il faudra construire cette usine. Donc, ça va engendrer des coûts. Et les dépenses en marketing. Puisqu'on fait une nouvelle usine, il faudra faire une campagne marketing. Tandis que si on avait été avec l'usine déjà établie, ben, la campagne marketing est déjà en place, il y a déjà des liens solides. Maintenant, les menaces. Les menaces de construire une nouvelle usine au Kenya et bien sûr la législation. Donc on ne sait pas vraiment, il faut se renseigner sur les normes, les lois en place, surtout pour les employés aussi, donc les normes du travail au Kenya. Aussi, il y a la population actuelle. Donc la population peut être réticente face à la construction d'une nouvelle usine, d'une multinationale comme Danone dans leur pays. Mais par contre, il y a plusieurs opportunités, entre autres la création d'emplois pour les Kenyans. Donc ça va améliorer aussi votre image, ça va montrer que vous voulez créer de l'emploi dans les pays en émergence. Maintenant pour l'option B. Donc les forces, c'est que présentement, on a déjà une usine dans ce pays-là, donc on connaît déjà la législation, donc on ne va pas avoir de problème à ce niveau. Par la suite, les coûts en publicité sont moindres, puisque, comme j'ai mentionné plus tôt, la campagne de marketing est déjà établie. Maintenant, les faiblesses, c'est sûr qu'il y aurait des coûts de transport, les coûts de douane et le pouvoir de négociation avec justement les fournisseurs serait plus compliqué. Maintenant, les menaces. La main-d'œuvre, il y aurait. Dans le fond, on ne créerait pas de nouveaux emplois. Donc, ça pourrait aussi affecter notre image. Et aussi, il pourrait y avoir des conflits avec le pays d'approvisionnement. Donc, ça ferait que peut-être ce pays-là, si on est en conflit, ne pourrait pas nous approvisionner au Kenya. Maintenant, pour les opportunités pour l'option B. Donc, il y a des ressources déjà établies, comme j'ai dit, soit la campagne de marketing, soit on a déjà des piliers assez forts pour aider au Kenya. Et aussi, on pourrait se retirer facilement si jamais il arrivait quelque chose justement avec le Kenya. Tandis que si on construit une usine là-bas, on aurait l'établissement là-bas. Donc, il faudra après ça, si jamais ça ne fonctionne pas, il faudrait vendre l'usine, ainsi de suite. Donc maintenant, je vais passer la parole à mes deux collègues pour l'analyse plus financière de la situation.
Thank you very much, Emily. So now looking at a holistic view of your financial situation for both options A and B, we look at the growth projections that are tightly aligned with the projections that Danone has forecasted with their investment in Kenya. So as you can see, we have a total demand of Danone increasing, which is aligned with their growth rate per kg, and we can see an increase over the years. We strongly agree with these methods due to the fact that the population in Kenya is growing, especially the emerging market space in Kenya. I know there's a lot of construction demand going on right now in Africa, which is fueling a lot of foreign direct investment, which makes a total, complete opportunity for Danone to invest and be in this market as we move forward. Now looking at the cost analysis of option A, we have a variable cost, total variable cost increases along with total fixed costs. Again, with including the one-time payment of the payment of the construction site in Kenya, it does come with the benefit as we move more towards the solution of our solution with the solution throughout the financial analysis.
I'm just going to be jumping around the slides a little bit. So now
moving forward, we come with a net present value, a total net present value of 10.8 million based on our discount factor by discounting by the WACC presented in the case.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Tyson. So I'm going to be jumping around the slides a little bit now that we move into option number 2, which is the outsourcing method. Instead of promoting a greenfield operation, we're now stepping back and doing an outsourcing method and actually bringing the products from across the border from a neighboring nation. So in this case, the revenues differ from option number 1 or A. As you see, the market share is the key pivotal point. The amount of market share that Danone will be able to acquire throughout the implementation of method A compared to B is the key pivotal difference in the revenues projected. Why? Because in the forecasted revenue for option A, we see that the growth rate at which the market share is growing is at 5% until it finally reaches 35% market share by 2020. Right? Why? Because again, Danone is within the actual borders of Kenya. You have the opportunity to actually promote your products, promote yourselves as a local business, and actually gain market share and gain the favorability of your consumers when they're looking around the shelves of their local grocery store and they see Danone on the shelves. However, with the financial forecast for B, here we see that the numbers are actually a bit, they underperform compared to option A when it comes to market share growth. Why? I think it's line number 5. So market share, as you see, we also start off with 10% market share. However, by 2020, we only make it up to 25%, as outlined in your financial statements. However, what we need to remember when looking at these numbers is the market share directly corresponds to the amount of revenue or the amount of kilos per person consumed, which is, again, the key driver of your bottom line, right? So your top line is coming from this revenue. It's not as accentuated because of this market share lack. Again, the other assumptions that we made is, of course, the sales price per kilogram. We looked at the fact that we decided to keep inflation at a 0% rate. However, the sales price itself is growing by 3% per year, and both of the options have the same thing. So the only thing that's different between the two options is, again, that market share growth. When we're looking at the costs, here we see several differences and key drivers of that higher NPV that we'll see in the next slide for option A compared to option B. First of all, the variable costs. So because you're outsourcing a different nation, you already have the variable cost structure in place. Therefore, you're not looking at any new industrial costs. And of course, you're not looking at any new logistics costs. However, those variable costs for primary materials are of course there because you're still producing those products just in a different country. Finally, when we're looking at the fixed costs, here there's a key difference. So the building cost is zero. Because you're outsourcing from a different nation, of course you don't need to set up a new factory. That initial down payment for that building is simply not there. So that's $10 million, 10 million of the local currency saved. Which is a key driver of the final NPV that we received for the forecasted option B of 6.9 million of local currency compared to 10.8 million of the first. So again, just at the bottom there, if we look at our net present value analysis, as you see, those numbers at the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, those simply stand for years. So as you can see that the actual payback period for both options is between years 3 and 4. That's when the NPV of the project finally becomes positive and becomes a good investment. And the question that we ask ourselves is, well, if option A has so many fixed costs with regards to the initial building costs, the more variable costs, etc., why is the payback period the same for both? And the answer is simple. Because there's that extra market share that you get right off the bat in year 2, 3, and 4, the final NPV and the final, the payback period is exactly the same because of that extra market share again received with option A. So this is exactly why we decided to go with option A for our recommendation for you, and we strongly believe that this is the best option for Danone Corporation.
Not only with the numbers, but also ethically as well. And we'll go into more later on throughout the case.
Perfect. So now the implementation. The implementation is fairly simple, but it is multifaceted. First of all, in the short term, from 0 to 1 years, here, again, since you are moving into Kenya, you're moving in, you need to set up a contract for the new building, for the new factory that you're going to be building. Of course, bring in all the equipment, start hiring those new employees, and of course, creating that marketing campaign. Before Danone starts selling its products, the marketing campaign should already be developed so that there's already an ask and a demand for the product before it appears on the shelves, right? So that is year 1. But of course, another key aspect mentioned before by Tyson and Emily is ethics. So what can Danone do to promote itself as an ethical corporation within Kenyan borders, right? And in this case, what's key to look at is the local communities. So the factory that Danone is going to be setting up, the community around it should be looked at in depth. So in other words, how can Danone actually help out the local workers? Those workers that you're going to be hiring, as mentioned by Ali, you're creating new jobs. They're most likely living close to the factory, perhaps doing fundraisers within the community, having sport games within the community. Kenya is very huge on soccer, so perhaps having a soccer tournament for the community sponsored by Danone would be key in order to ensure that Danone's image is portrayed throughout the world at that top-notch ethical basis. In years 1 to 5, so this is the bulk of your operation. So this is when that production finally kicks in. We have the marketing campaign running, and of course, the employees at this point should be settling into their new jobs. So again, from an HR perspective, making sure that the employees that are working on site have all the necessary tools, perhaps doing ongoing evaluations of how the factories are operating is key. Of course, looking at whether the investment itself was best, if you need to refinance perhaps when it comes to the rates that you locked in. If, for example, if you acquire new equipment choosing if for example you chose a flexible financing system for it, perhaps going back and refinancing based on global economic factors such as interest rates, etc. So again, staying flexible with regards to your financing, but also staying flexible with regards to your actual logistics and operations. And of course, in the 5 years plus, this is when you should step back and evaluate your plan in Kenya. Has what we propose to you, has it been working the way it should? We strongly believe that it will. However, there are certain macroeconomic assumptions that we have made that perhaps could alter the way the implementation should be worked, and that will be outlined by Tyson. In the risk and mitigation section. But of course, here, first of all, looking at how the employees have been performing. So performance reports on the employees, and of course, also giving an auto evaluation of the managers themselves. Have they had the proper tools given to them to make sure that Danone is operating, the factory is operating at its full potential? And of course, having the employees evaluate their management is key as well. In Kenya, it is a democratic state. It is a democratic state, so from a cultural perspective, the people of Kenya as workers, they value politics the same as they value their job. So they want to have a say in the matter, they want to have a say with regards to the people in power over them, and in this case it's the managers of the non. So giving them a chance to evaluate their managers, to see how they've been performing, and perhaps going back and changing certain things would definitely put, from an operational perspective, and of course from the bottom line perspective, by doing so, Danone will be able to ensure prosperity for years to come. And finally, from a marketing perspective, here as well, for both of those options, it was about the same, 7 to 10% for marketing. Of course, with option A, marketing is more expensive, it's at 10% of your top line. However, perhaps investing more in marketing will be key. If your competitors see that you've been successful in Kenya, perhaps they'll jump on board as well. Yokely, perhaps, who knows? So in this case, making sure that you're on top of your marketing game is key as well, and perhaps having a contingency fund set aside for that marketing plan down the line, this is 5 years plus, outside of the scope that we were looking at, is key to ensuring success for years to come. So now off to Tyson for our risks and mitigations.
Any successful business has taken the appropriate risk. The example of this, though, they take the appropriate calculated risk. We believe that the risk here and the benefit far outweigh the risk when we look at the way Danone can operate if they do choose to go with option A based on our implementation. There are bargaining risks. Since Danone will be within Kenya, they have to bargain with other wholesalers in terms of finding fresh produce and stuff like that. I believe this should be outlined properly in the ethics policy when dealing with people in Kenya in terms of finding the optimal solution, the optimal price that will both benefit both Kenya and Danone as an organization in itself. There are market share risks. There are emerging markets risks. Look at the China slowdown right now in the economy. Finding the right places to be in the market, it's tough. But being involved in such an emerging market, such a growing emerging market such as Kenya, there are market share risks, and as Roma outlined, increasing marketing to increase the market share within an organization, providing support to charities will be putting Danone in an optimal situation to benefit. There are currency risks, especially when you're importing some products, if you're not dealing locally, but that can be mitigated through swaps. And an alternative solution, if option A or B don't work out. A large beneficial thing that happens in, especially companies in the pharmaceutical space, is brownfield investments. Brownfield investments being acquiring other companies within Kenya to get the exposure you need to make the impact that you want. We didn't just choose a solution based on our analysis of the price. Although the price and the net present value gave us supported our argument, we picked a solution that impact the world, that impact the people around them. With solution A, you're not only increasing the standard of living, you're helping out businesses around you. You are essentially making people's lives better. And if you're following Ilya's philosophy, Isaac would be proud to say option 1 would support that solution based on ethical merit and with the numbers backed up. Thank you very much for listening to our presentation. We'll be happy to answer any questions at this point in time.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. First note, you showed a very good comprehension of the trade-off between market share and cost and everything. I mean, that was well done. I have a quick question, rapidly. When you calculate the NPV, can you tell me how you come up with your terminal value? In your NPV calculation, do you have some, if you put the slide back, I mean, do you...
Yep. So when calculating the NPV of the actual projects, because we're looking at only 1 to 5 years specified in the actual thesis or the actual question, we really zoned in on the 1 to 5 years. We didn't do the actual analysis of the net present value of given the terminal growth rate of 3%. Of course, if we did have to do that, we'd simply take that last figure for 2020. We would multiply it by 1.03, which is that terminal growth rate that we were looking at for the sales, as outlined within the statements. And finally, we would divide that by the R minus G, which is our market or our WACC, 15%, minus the growth rate of 3% to get that terminal value for that project. But again, when we're looking at this particular scenario, we're looking from 1 to 5 years. Why? Because that is the primary. We felt that was the primary objective of this particular case and analysis and problem at hand for Danone.
Can you go back to the slide of option A where you put your capex? Have you said later in the presentation, in the implementation phase, you said that it will be between 0 and 1 year that you will build the factory and build the lines. How do you come up with the total prod line cost that is spread out throughout the 5 years? Are you recommending to have an implementation that you build the factory and after you build the lines as the demand grows, or do you suggest us to build the line at the first year?
That's a great question. And if you look right here at line number 4 from the bottom, number of product lines required, round up. So the way we calculate that is on a dynamic basis. When we looked at the cost structure, we thought that why pay for a line when you don't need it yet? Right? So what we did is, based on the total demand for example, in this case it's option A, if you look at the total demand for Danone in kilograms, and for example for 2016 it's 22.8, it's kind of hard to see, so 22.8 million kilograms demanded in year 1, so 2016, 2017 is 35, and 50, 70, 94. So what we did afterwards is we took that number and divided it by the maximum capacity of each line, which is 15 kilotons, so 15 million kilograms. And that is exactly how we arrived at the 1 line required for 2016, 2 lines required for 2017, etc. And why did we round up? Well, because we felt that Danone should be able to meet all demand, if not more, and prepare for demand surplus perhaps. So always round up when you're looking at meeting operational constraints. And that's how we arrived at those lines.
Okay, and do you think that kind of implementation can have an impact on the quality of the food that is built in the factory, because the factory is still in construction?
Could you repeat that question?
As you will still be in construction in the factory,
yep,
because you will be growing the capacity. Do you think that can be a risk on the quality of the product that will come up from the factory?
I think, yeah, so definitely be a risk that would come into, especially when you're uploading all that construction at that point in time. But I think that risk can sort of be mitigated by having a detailed plan set forth that Danone will set forth, especially when they're hiring some of the construction workers. Again, Kenya is no stranger to construction as they're moving forward, more bridges being built in the country. There's plenty of workers there, and I believe that given the quality of work, I believe that it would meet the quality demanded, especially if we look to provide an additional set of pipelines to meet our operational capacity.
I would ask you another question. We have time in a minute. Again, so you have two options. Okay, one is establish inside the country, one is import. Does that make sense to use the same the same discount rate for both options?
So in this case, yes, it does make sense to use the same discount rate for both options. Why? Because the cost of raising capital for the non-corporation, for example, if they were to go to the capital markets to raise funds for this particular project, the cost of capital would be the same. Why? Because the investors in North American capital markets, they will be expecting the same return. However, the other key thing to consider is the fact that when looking at option A and option B, there's also a line that says neighboring countries. And given, this is a key assumption that we made as well, is the fact that the discount rates in, say, a neighboring country to Kenya would be the same as it would be in Kenya itself. Unless, of course, there's political instability perhaps within that country, massive currency fluctuations, etc. But we labeled both of those countries as having the same climate for raising capital, so to speak, and the same, the investors would be expecting the same return on that capital raised. So that is how we approach that question. However, if you're importing perhaps from Europe, in that case, the risks, etc., involved would definitely affect the WACC considerably. In this case, we thought that the difference wouldn't be considerable enough for us to actually change the WACC in two different cases.
Really good answer.
Thanks so much.
Well, thank you.